Okay, this week it's time to get back into the topic of mental health. So, mental health is probably like just as, if not more important than your physical health, because both kind of work indirectly in tandem, indirectly and everything. So, this one is kind of going to talk about mental health and the aspect on how you can take care of yourself. And of course, speaking of mental health, someone wants attention for his mental health, don't you? Yeah, you think you're the star of the videos, huh? You're like, hey, yeah, watch these videos. Yes, yes, he wants attention and everything. So anyway, as an little attention junkie wants his daily pets and everything, we get into things like CBT and rebt. Now, CBT is like the cognitive behavioral therapy, as I got notes and stuff ready. So it's a structured, goal-oriented type of talk therapy that helps individuals manage mental health conditions and emotional concerns by changing their thought patterns and behaviors. Now, most of this, you're going to deal with professionals, psychologists, therapists, and now, in regards to stuff like substance abuse, if you go into an organization like AA, you're not going to find anything like this and everything. In fact, the whole religious text of AA that was published back in 1935, it hasn't changed since then. You should be asking yourself why are we still using an outdated religious approach when we have stuff like the CBT and everything, which is part of a smart recovery. Which if you use that on top of getting your mental health professional, you're going to be setting yourself up a lot better for future success and everything than you would in any religious organization and everything, purely in a mental health capacity and everything. So another thing that you're going to find in something smart recovery is the rebt, rational emotional behavioral therapy. So it gets you techniques to of attacking irrational thoughts that you might have. So in regards to mental health and everything. So now, of course, I'm kind of talking in generalities, and I'm not the mental health expert. So the stuff that I'm talking about, and examples and stuff I give and everything, you're going to have to bounce off your mental health professional, because they have not only a ton of more education than I do. Chances are they have a ton of more experience in the mental health field as well. So the idea of this video is just to give you ideas and kind of the general terms and everything, so you can go and get to your mental health professional and be like, hey, look, and you can start asking informed questions and everything, and so you can come across and ask your therapist or your psychologist or whoever, and get kind of be able to get the even better help and everything, and take an active participation and you actually getting better and everything. So I mentioned CBT with the definition of rebt, the rational emotional behavioral therapy. Like I said, it kind of gives you techniques to kind of attack irrational thoughts, and going to say maybe you have low levels of anxiety to the point where you might not necessarily need medication. Something like this would come into play, and you work with the professionals to start maybe you start getting anxious and everything, and you start using techniques to kind of you start getting irrational thoughts. This is where this comes in and starts that. Okay, when I start getting these irrational thoughts, maybe I start getting anxious, and using substance abuse, as this guy's shedding like crazy. uh, Substance abuse, you have the irrational thought, you get anxious at work because maybe you work with a coworker you haven't worked in months, and you start getting anxious, and you get starting irrational fears and emotions, and and thoughts and everything, and so it leads you down the road oh, I'm getting all this anxiety and everything. I gotta drink to relieve it, and talks you. It kind of teaches techniques of hey, time out. I'm getting anxious, and then you start trying to pull yourself back, and okay, why am I getting anxious, and start asking yourself questions instead of letting that irrational thought train just go run wild and crash and burn and everything. You catch yourself and say okay, well, in the past, in substance abuse, I'd go to the liquor store, get a big bottle, a good old hand, one of those big jugs of a tequila or something, and I would down the whole bottle, to deal with this anxiety. Okay, well that didn't necessarily was a healthy coping mechanism for that. So it helps you take that, like I said, time out and be like, wait, maybe instead of taking this road to go to the liquor store to get completely wasted, I go this way to go to the library so I can take that time out and kind of help clear my thoughts. I read a book. It takes me 3 hours to finish just down the whole bottle of tequila. I go to the library, spend 3 hours. I spend the same amount of time there reading a whole book on a topic I like, whether it could be psychology, any type of mythology, whether it's from Christian to Norse to Greek or Egyptian, whatever type of mythology, or you could be into fantasy books or horror movies or something. You go to the library, you do 3 hours of reading and or research on whatever topic you're into. Then you go home. Same amount of time has passed, but you've replaced a negative coping mechanism with drinking and getting drunk and everything, which kind of could quite possibly lead you to getting drunk again and again and again. Oh, hey, look, I got this substitute coping mechanism of going to the library and researching. So now, not only do I keep myself sober and clean and my head clear, I now am researching more, and expanding my mind, my intellectual capacity, and everything. And I now have go from a negative coping mechanism to a positive coping mechanism. So it's like CBT, as the kind of the top of the hierarchy, and then you got rebt that helps you attack those irrational thoughts that you're going to have and everything. So you use this stuff in tandem with professionals and everything. So that way you can actually again have healthy coping mechanisms instead of negative coping mechanisms, and that way you then lead into maybe other healthy coping mechanisms. Okay, so maybe the library, maybe I have these the example I use is your irrational thoughts run away on a Sunday instead of drinking. Well, the library is closed. You then have you set yourself up with multiple coping mechanisms. Well, hey, the gym's still open on Sunday, so hey, I can go to the gym, get in a workout, spend a good couple hours there. It takes me maybe half hour to get there. I spend an hour and a half working out. Spend half an hour kind of winding down, taking a shower and stuff, and then it takes me another half hour to get home. So I just spent 2.5 hours getting to the gym, to and from the gym, and doing my workout. And hey, look, there's another healthy coping mechanism. Not only did I help my mental health by taking that time out and thinking things through, and then engaging in a healthy coping mechanism, I also increased another health benefit of actually getting in a workout with help my physical health and everything. And so there's another coping mechanism. So another coping mechanism would be surrounding yourself with a good community, that people that aren't necessarily going to put you down, oh hey, yeah, you're totally worthless, oh yeah, you're just nothing but an alcoholic, and that's just the way you are. And you surround yourself with people that you get together with. Go to the coffee shop with those people, and again, maybe you hit the gym and you still have maybe an hour to kill before you go home and everything. So you call up your friends and you get with them for that last hour, basically killing two birds with a stone with going to the gym and then going to your friends to the coffee shop and everything. So having multiple coping mechanisms, and so working with a professional, you're definitely going to help get you. They can definitely help get you on that steady ground, because they have a much more objective viewpoint, because they aren't necessarily all entangled in your emotions, that a whole ball of yarn of emotions that all tied up in everything in your head and everything. So they can that's why you go to the professional, to get that kind of a different perspective and everything. So I do have a couple links that I'm going to link in the probably the description and or the comments and everything, so people can look into it. One's from the Mayo Clinic, and the other one's from Albert Ellis, and both are .org websites. So I've mentioned this before, .org, .gov, and .edus are are good legitimate sources of information on the internet. So when you see the .edu, .org, .gov on like a website or something, you can actually trust those a lot better than like .coms, because like a lot of times, uh, I mean, yes, you can get like a .com to maybe like a to off like a professional's offices or something, but where .com's kind of like as I'm covered in the cat here, where .com's kind of like lack is that you can basically get into blogs and stuff, and weed into like kind of like the realm of opinion and not necessarily fact and everything. So like you want to go to like the .org, .com, .org, .edu, and .gov for like facts over quite possibly fiction with .com and everything. So the links will be down in the description and or the comments and everything. So this is like a video to kind of like get talk about like mental health and the concepts of CBT and REBT to get people, hey, look, use these concepts, bounce this off your profession, whoever you work with. And of course, like a couple of things that I failed to mention is that you can do on your own is meditation and journaling. So those are another two things that you could incorporate while you're getting the professional help with the CBT and REBT with like a psychologist or therapist and everything. So the whole goal is to actually, like with the stuff that I mentioned here, is to replace negative coping mechanisms, and like quite often like especially in my case was like a substance abuse. Start replacing that negative coping mechanism with positive ones, like getting professional help for your mental health, going to the gym for your physical health, getting proper nutrition, surrounding yourself with good people, and like that can help uplift you and you uplift them and everything. So that, like, this is where getting like your mental health in order, along with everything else that I just mentioned, to kind of finish this video, can help you lead into like a lot better life and everything. And like you're going to increase the quality of your life would be like a lot better by doing this stuff and everything. So again, a couple links that I'll be leaving for people to actually check into this and everything, so that way people actually can get into like the whole definition and go deeper into the weeds of REBT and CBT, while they can get into professional help as well.